This is Superior Sports Talk with Reggie Wilson and Luke Inman, part of Locked On Sports Minnesota, and it starts now.
Back in the lab, Reggie and Luke back at it. Another episode of Superior Sports Talk presented by Locked On Sports Minnesota. What's going on today, Reggie?
What up, man? It's good to hear that music because it means that we're talking sports again, ready to get into it.
Yeah, we're discussing some unique position battles for the Vikings before they head into training camp and which big name could be the odd man out. Plus, talking Twins snapped their 6-game winning streak yesterday, and later I'm putting Reggie on the hot seat with what does it mean. It's all coming up on Superior Sports Talk. But first, if you enjoy Superior Sports Talk, you'll also enjoy our other daily show with NFL receiver Ron Johnson. Ron offers the unique view of an athlete turned broadcaster and brings you high-profile guests like Braylon Edwards, Adam Thielen, and Robert Smith. Subscribe to Locked On Sports Minnesota YouTube channel or your favorite podcast feeds so you never miss an episode. All right. Let's talk about those Twins, shall we? Twins head in this one hoping for their 7th in a row, but despite a chance in the bottom of the 10th, bases juiced down to no outs, and the harder their lineup up, Correa goes down swinging, Kepler goes down swinging on I swear, 7 sliders in a row, and Gary Sanchez pops one up to first, and the Twins fail to capitalize late. Reggie, they had their chances in this one. Again, another solid starting pitching performance, this time from Dylan Bundy. Just allows 1 run through 5 2/3. In the end, though, Twins lose, streak snapped, but still take the series over the Tigers. Your quick thought and takeaways from this game and just the series as a whole.
So coming into this, we were saying look, you can't expect them to just sweep every team, right. Just because they're a quote unquote bad team. They're still a professional baseball team. So I get that. That being said, that game was totally winnable. It was totally winnable. And it's funny because, they were scoring something like 8 runs a game over the last week before the last 2 games. And so you're just like, man, let's go. Let's get it going. And it was just interesting that, that 2-run blast in the first was all the runs that they scored, the whole rest of the way, it was just okay, are we gonna do anything else?
Just what we're doing? 8 straight innings of crickets. That's it.
Yeah,
that was it.
And so that was a little concerning because you're just this team should be better than that, especially against a bad team like the Tigers. You should be jumping on them and beating them down. And it's tough, man, because we kind of said this with the Timberwolves. It's you don't let a team get close. You don't play with fire because at some point you're going to get burned. And I think yesterday was a good example of that, them getting burned. They let the same guy homer twice. And then, we go to extras, had a chance in the 9th, didn't do it. And then you go to extras and you give up the 2-run bomb. And then you're like, look, man, it's over. But then they come back in the bottom of the 10th and you're just like, oh man, we might see some fireworks here. See some guys get on base. Now all of a sudden the bases are loaded. And there are there's only 1 out, and you're just like, okay, I know how this is gonna go. And then you get the 2 guys come up and they get out, and you're just like, dang, man, it was the most anticlimactic ending that you can get. That was a brutal loss for the Twins yesterday. But I don't think it's one that is a backbreaker or anything like that. But that was one of those ones that looking back, in a few weeks, you're looking back, you're just like, dang, man, we should have got that one.
Yesterday seemed like a game they should have won. The day before seemed like a game they should have lost, and they ended up pulling it out. So you kind of sit there, again, you look at the whole series as a whole, they take 2 of 3. You'll take that all day long. It was the Correa with no outs, bases juiced. He got a pitch up and in, and it almost looked like it hit his hand, and everybody just a collective deep breath. Oh, no, here we go again.
And I think it was the bottom of his bat.
Yeah, it ended up hitting the bottom of his bat, so it counts as a strike. You're originally thinking, oh my gosh, you just got hit by a pitch. Boom, there goes
Mm-hmm.
one run. All of a sudden, the deficit's only down to one. But that was
Yeah.
the swing in momentum because the pitcher Fulmer came back with a nasty slider low and away after he
Mm-hmm.
just brushed up Correa. He was brought to the ground. He had to collect himself, get his feet underneath him, and that just started it. And then obviously, again, Kepler strikes out, I swear, like 7 sliders in a row. Couldn't touch him. Sanchez pops one out. Nothing
Yeah.
going. Again, just a missed opportunity there.
It's
Again, you'll
tough,
take 2 or
man.
3. It just felt like the Twins' bats, though, from innings 2 to 9, just needed some kind of spark somewhere in there yesterday and couldn't find it. Luis Arraez, just 1 of 5 batting, drops down to a putrid 347. What's going on with
Oh my
Luis Arraez,
gosh.
man? Just cut
Oh
him
my
now, man.
gosh.
He's changed, man. I don't know what's going on. That's not the same guy I remember. Meanwhile, you've got Royce Lewis just beasted down in AAA for the St.
Oh,
Paul
don't
Saints.
do this.
Was named one of the best minor league players of the week. I have to, Reggie. The Twins need a spark in their lineup, and Royce is going off. How much longer does this go on? When can the madness stop? I mean, the people need Royce back in their lives. Tell me we're close to seeing Royce back up for the Twins.
Well, look, when Rocco Baldelli was asked, right after he was sent down, he was like, look, we're going to find opportunities and ways to get Royce back up here. Mm-hmm. And you saw, they're tinkering with some things. When he went back down to AAA for the Saints, they had him at third base. He's a shortstop. Probably try to test him out in outfield or, something like that, just to try to, get him, maybe at second base or something, just to try to get him some opportunities. Because, when Correa is up, it's Correa's job. And everybody understands that, especially with the money that they're paying him. Correa's the guy. I get it. But when you got a guy like Royce Lewis, who was playing well when he was up, and then he's just been killing it in St. Paul since he's gone back down, it's just like, well, it's kind of time. I think it's time for this guy. Now, the question you asked is when. I have no idea. Because then now you're talking about taking someone else's spot who's already up, and it's just like, well, who do you replace? Do you maybe send Miranda back down? You got Garlic, you got Larnick. You pretty much have some outfield depth. So it's like, what do you do there? I really don't know who you decide that you're going to cast aside to bring Royce Lewis back. And then if you do bring him back, where do you put him in the lineup? Where do you put him, on the field? I think there are a lot more questions than there are answers, and a lot of people are excited about Royce Lewis coming up, but it's just like, well, what's the plan? And I really don't know what the plan is at this point.
I think just people at this point, especially if a couple losses start to, collectively happen over the next, few days, few weeks, then it's easy to start banging the table and say, all right, enough's enough. Royce Lewis needs to be in the lineup. When you're winning, it's a lot easier to say, okay, we can take our time a little bit, let him kind of get acclimated to different positions down in the minors. And then when he's up, he's not going into left field or second base cold turkey. He's kind of got his feet underneath him a little bit. ESPN's weekly power rankings were released today. Twins catapulted from 12 to 9, breaking the top 10 for the first time this year. Of course, the article goes on to just shove in our face how much better we could be had they not traded Paddock and Taylor Rogers, who's been absolutely lights out. But nonetheless, big market experts are calling this ball club, this team, Reggie, that was dead last in the division last year, a top 10 baseball team. How you like them apples? I mean, what's your quick thoughts and takeaways from a Twins being a top 10 in the power rankings just, 7 weeks into the season?
Yeah, I mean, it's encouraging, and the Twins have benefited from a little bit of a soft schedule here early on. They got, hit and, beat on a little bit, early on to start the season. With some of the competition that they had, but now you're looking at them and you're just like, well, look, they're right there where you want them to be. And I think how exciting is it that they are in the national conversation as a top 10 team in the league. And, a lot of people say, oh, they're a small market team. I never looked at Minneapolis as a quote unquote small market just because of all the sports that we have here. And, I guess when you look at it from a money spent standpoint of, what it looks like with them as opposed to maybe like a New York or a Chicago or LA or Boston or something like that. Like, okay, maybe you're a smaller market than them. Yeah, I get that. But it's kind of cool to see a quote unquote small market team, be catapulted into the national conversation because they are playing well. And I don't know if anyone was really expecting them to be at this point where they are at this time during the season. I think coming into the year, you looked at it and you're just like, oh, the White Sox are probably the class of this division. And then, maybe you think the Royals are going to be improved. And then, you probably put the Twins somewhere in the middle of the pack, maybe fighting for the second spot in the division. But right now they're leading the division. And that's encouraging if you're looking at it from a fan standpoint and if you're looking at it from a national standpoint to see those guys in there. I do think that it's a little bit of low-hanging fruit at this point to talk about how Chris Paddock is now on his second Tommy John surgery and Taylor Rogers is being lights out. But they did mention Johan Duran and the work that he's doing as a rookie. He's amazing. And so you're just like, look, it would have been cool if maybe you would have kept Rogers and maybe those two are a 1-2 punch in the back end of the bullpen, yes. But it's just like, come on, man. Like, just let it happen. Like, it happened already. Nothing can be done about it. The starters that the Twins have right now are filling in, dutifully. But it was going to be a decision that had to be made about Taylor Rogers anyway. And you got a guy, when he comes back from the Tommy John surgery, who you'll still have a couple more years of control. And he's still relatively younger of an arm. And so you're just like, it's okay. They'll weather this. It does sting a little bit. And, we didn't need you bringing it up, ESPN. We already know what the deal is.
Come on.
Jerks,
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's like, look, even with that happening, they're still at number 9. And so there's a lot to be said about that.
When Twins look to get their winning streak going again, starting today back at home for the first of 4 against a struggling Royals team. KC has lost 6 in a row. Devin Smeltzer takes the mound after being called up for Joe Ryan, who was sent down for testing positive for COVID. So we'll have to keep tabs on how long he'll be out. I'm assuming at least a week or two, probably going to miss 2-3 starts at minimum. First pitch at Target Field, 6:40 p.m. Central Standard Time. Coming up, we're talking Vikings position battles and which big name could be the odd man out. Plus later, I'm putting Reggie on the hot seat with what does it mean. But first, do you want instant post-game reaction from insiders that cover your favorite teams? Check out our Locked On Sports Minnesota podcast on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Following every Twins, Vikings, Wild, or Wolves game, our Locked On team hosts are broadcasting live with team insiders like Kevin Gorg for the Wild and Brandon Warren for the Twins. Never miss a podcast by subscribing to Locked On Sports Minnesota YouTube channel. Okay, Reggie, well, we all know the new faces for the Vikings by now after a strong draft class to many experts, a solid offseason, big names like Za'Darius Smith, retaining Danielle Hunter and Patrick Peterson. Reggie, we talked in depth about the NFC North and the Packers quite a bit yesterday and how this whole division fits in with one another, and it's clear. Once again, this whole thing should come down to the Packers and Vikings, according to many NFL experts. So I want to take a deeper dive and look at the defensive side of the ball between these two teams. And you tell me, if you were building a team today, which positional group would you take, the Vikings or Packers? Both teams are now running a similar 3-4 base defense, so we can kind of get an apples-to-apples comparison and look between the two. Let's start with the defensive line. Just looking at the starters for the Vikings, we know we've got Dalvin Tomlinson, Harrison Phillips, and a rotation of what I'm predicting to be Armand Watson, James Lynch. Could be a wild card in there we don't know about, but as of today, that's where we stand. For the Packers, you've got Kenny Clark in the middle, Dean Lowry, and now first-round rookie Devon Wyatt, Who's got the edge, Packers or Vikings? Which defensive line are you taking?
I'm going to take the Vikings just because they have the most experience on that defensive line. And, you look at guys that they've brought in like Za'Darius Smith, Harrison Phillips, Horrible Harry. Like, those are some pretty impact guys on that defensive front. And you already, have guys like Dalvin Tomlinson. And so I think that that's going to be a really, really strong unit for them. I think that's going to be a position of strength for them. And that's going to be something that I feel like puts them over the top. When you look at the Packers, like, you got a couple rookies, trying to fill out those couple spots on that line. And so, while we talked about how all in that the Packers are on defense, I think there are some question marks and some things that remain to be seen when it comes to where those guys that they have brought in kind of fit in. And if, guys are going to, go to the next level. You talk about guys like Rashawn Gary and things like that. You're just like, well, if I'm going to put my money on it, like, I'm taking Danielle Hunter. He's a proven commodity when healthy. I'm taking Za'Darius Smith, also a proven commodity when healthy. And they have some guys on that front that really scare you. And they're going to be much improved as well with the run defense. That's something that, we talked to Dalvin Tomlinson about the other day, and he was, pretty much talking about how he felt like the run defense was going to be better because of the pieces that they added, the scheme that they're running now. And so, week one, we're going to get a chance to see that, on full display, and I think it's going to be advantage Vikings.
Yeah, closer than I thought originally. Thought Vikings right away, but a lot of uncertainty for me pending on who that third lineman is going to be. Mm-hmm. And I forgot too. You can't forget this one. The Packers signed Jerron Reed from the Commanders, former first rounder from Alabama, pretty rock solid. So yeah. I'm going to just give a slight edge to the Packers, but man, call it a coin flip. Pretty close. Like you said, We'll find out a lot more in week one when these two teams face off. You kind of touched on Za'Darius and Hunter. Let's look at the linebackers here for both teams. Check these out, man. These are wild, man. Vikings, Hunter and Smith on the edge. Kendricks and Jordan Hicks in the middle. Packers, Rashawn Gary, absolute stud in the making, and Preston Smith on the edge. And Devondre Campbell, a Pro Bowler, and first-round rookie Quay Walker from Georgia in the middle. That's tough, man. I mean, who you got in this one? Linebackers, Vikings or Packers?
Okay, I'm looking at it. Jordan Hicks was very solid last year.
3 straight 100-plus tackles, I believe.
Exactly.
So, I mean, not the name brand, but pretty solid.
As productive
guy.
Yeah, as productive as they come. Eric Kendricks is an absolute stud. Mm-hmm. You drafted Brian Asamoah to really kind of, help and put some depth on that linebacker core. Man, this is tough. You know what? We're a Minnesota show. I'm just gonna go Vikings. I'm gonna go Vikings just because, they have some talent on that side, and I'm just willing to give them the benefit of the doubt there.
Gary, again, booming stud. Campbell, a Pro Bowler. Preston Smith, super solid in my opinion. I think it all hinges on how quickly your first rounder, Quay Walker, can get acclimated, because you're only good as your weakest link. And I know that's the question mark for them. Just because he's a first rounder doesn't mean there's not going to be some growing pains, some rookie lumps that first year. Jordan Hicks, I guess, would be the weakest of the four for the Vikings, but he's had, again, 3 straight 100-plus tackles. So we know what he's doing there. Pending everyone's healthy, of course, I got to go Vikes, man. I think if you need to win one game like this, for sure, if you're building a team for the future in the long haul, I guess clearly the Packers may be a little bit younger, while Za'Darius Smith is in his 30s, coming off back surgery. Kendricks is getting up there a little bit. A lot of different variables and factors for sure. But when healthy, again, I just think that star-studded ability of Hunter, Za'Darius, and Eric Kendricks, a Pro Bowler in the middle, I think that gives me the edge over the Packers at the linebacker position. All right, last one, the secondary. Again, Vikes going youth movement here, bringing in Boot Jr., Caleb Evans, Lewis Seen. They still got Cam Dantzler. They signed Chandon Sullivan to be the nickel, mixed in with the Pro Bowl vets, the guys that have been here a while, Dirty Harry, Patrick Peterson. Packers just signed Jair Alexander as the highest paid cornerback. He's a top 3 corner. Eric Stokes, a first rounder last year. Rasul Douglas at cornerback. He led the team with 5 interceptions. Darnell Savage and Adrian Amos at safety, a first rounder and second rounder there, respectively. Who you got in the secondary here, Reggie? This one was the hardest for me.
Yeah, this one is tough for me. Man, I think just from a youth standpoint, maybe the Packers, and especially, Jair Alexander is one of the best in the game right now. And so, they paid him as such. And so I think, Patrick Peterson has another year under his belt, another year older. So you're not really sure, what to expect. It took him until the very last game of the season to get his first interception of the season to keep that streak going in his career. Lewis Seen is going to be pretty good. You would hope. Andrew Booth would be good. If he stays healthy. Cam Bynum, you're expecting a jump from him. Not really sure what to expect from a Caleb Evans in his first year. I think he's just going to be more so for depth. But yeah, it's a coin flip for me. But I think if you had to force me, I guess I'll go Packers.
Yeah, it's crazy though when you sit here and look at position by position, how close specifically the linebacker and the secondary is as far as these two teams go, as far as just talent from starters. We're not talking about depth or anything, just your 11 starters in those positions specifically. Yeah. I dock the Packers in the linebacker position because, again, Quay Walker is inexperienced. We don't know how long it's going to take him to get acclimated. So I got to do the same for the Vikings with 2 rookies, Andrew Booth Jr. and Lewis Seen. And when I look at just who's your number 1 corner, to have a stud shutdown guy, lockdown, clear that side of the field out like Jair Alexander has been. And when you look at the Vikings, Patrick Peterson, not the Patrick Peterson we're known for, not the name brand Patrick Peterson in his prime, still a great veteran number 1 guy, but not that true shutdown, lockdown guy. When you got that number 1 lockdown corner, just does so many things for your defense and secondary. I'm going to give the edge to the Packers just by a hair. But again, crazy to see just how close position by position these 11 starters are on the defense comparing the Vikings and the Packers. Again, you mentioned it. They'll face off week 1. We'll know right away, real quick, which team has the edge early on. Again, specifically with the Packers going a little bit more defensive heavy over the last few off seasons, trying to change their identity, take some pressure off Aaron Rodgers. If the division plays out like many are expecting, again, the Vikings should be nipping at the heels of the Packers all year long. So kind of fun just to go position by position and see how they match up both for the present and the long term as well. A lot of youth in both these teams at multiple positions. All right, the time has come. My favorite segment is here. I'm putting Reggie on the hot seat, covering all the latest hot topics in Minnesota sports, called What Does It Mean? Reggie, you ready?
Let's do it.
With a new head coaching staff, the Vikings have a mix of new faces and returning veterans that will bring highly competitive position battles come training camp. When looking at the wide receiver group specifically, what does it mean when projecting the odd man out from the group? As it stands today, I look at the list, I see 6, maybe 7 legitimate players who could make the cut. However, most teams, of course, only carry around 5 heading into the season. Is there one big name that you think, man, might be the odd man out here? Because they're not keeping all 7, if not even 8 guys from this receiving core.
Well, I guess the question would be, who do you consider to be a quote-unquote big name?
Well, for me, BC Johnson was coming up pretty strong the first 2 years with Kirk Cousins, had some good rapport. Before KJ Osborne, it was BC Johnson was the wide receiver 3. Now, I took some heat a few weeks ago on Twitter saying he was cemented, he was supplanted as wide receiver 3. All right, maybe a little bit too strong of remarks there, but for sure a great number 4, if not a really solid number 3 until we develop KJ Osborne. But I'm looking at this. Amir Smith-Marset, Dan Chisna probably makes the team for special teams. Blake Prohl, yeah, definitely a bubble guy, but Jalen Naylor was brought in as a draft pick. He's for sure
Yeah.
probably going to make the team. BC Johnson, I think, could be the odd man out when just a year and a half ago, he was getting wide receiver 3 reps and producing at a pretty strong level there.
Yeah, I think he'll be in the mix with Smith-Marset for wide receiver 4. You know, KJ Osborne has arrived, if you will, and he's only going to be better next season. So the top 3 are set. JJ, Thielen, Osborne. And then when you kind of look at it, they're going to keep Naylor around. They, drafted him. And so, they're going to continue to see what he does. I don't anticipate he'll get a whole lot of looks, but if you look at what the Rams did, they really mixed it up with a lot of their receivers. I'm trying to think of how to pronounce the guy's name, number 18 with the Rams. I think it's like Skowronek or something like that from Notre Dame. Like, people were like, who? Like, when you got Van Jefferson and OBJ and Cooper Kupp and, all these guys, and you're just like, you're playing him?
Right.
Like, who is that? And so I think, BC Johnson coming back from injury, Blake Prohl coming back from injury. I'm not sure really what to think about Blake, but I think the top guys, will continue to be JJ, Thielen, Osborne, Smith-Marset, Johnson, Naylor. That's 6. So it's like pick your poison at 7.
Again, anytime a new coaching staff regime comes in, you can't just assume the guys that are returning are just automatic locks. I mean, Dan Chisna was brought on to be this special teams kind of ace. He's been a good gunner at times. He runs that 4.3 240. Maybe he'll get a mix in the punt return job, when that all shakes out during training camp. But he was a guy that I kind of penciled in to be special teams guy. But, just looking at the raw numbers, again, how are you going to keep 7 receivers? I don't think you can do it. Dan Chisna may be on the way out, or at least practice squad eligible. Blake Prohl as well there. But special teams comes into such a huge factor when it comes to these bubble guys. Who's going to stick out during training camp on special teams, whether it be being a punt returner, being a gunner, being able to, again, just provide some sort of value outside of your main position, outside of receiver. That's going to be huge. Again, Jalen Naylor got a good track history of being a return man at Michigan State, both punt and kick returns. So he should have a good edge and leg up on the competition there as well. Going to be interesting, though, to see how many receivers they actually end up keeping. All right, next one up. The Celtics are 1 game away from the finals after a 93-80 victory. More stifling defense, limiting the Heat to just 80 points and 82 points, respectively, their last 2 games. What does it mean for the Heat now, who have been just a shell of themselves the last 2 games, to now rally back and win 2 straight? What's the more accurate summary here? Celtics rising up big to the occasion, or the Heat suddenly collapsing?
I know that it feels like a collapse, but I don't think Jimmy is 100%, and I think them not being with Tyler Hero is a pretty big blow to them, as far as like their shooting and being able to keep up with a good shooting team like the Celtics. That being said, I don't think either team really shot all that well in that last game. It was like a throwback. You had people talking about that was like a throwback to like 2006 Eastern Conference with the low scoring affair. I looked up, I was like, is this 64-58 toward the end of the third? What am I watching? Like, what year is this? Did we just flash back to, back then when they were, Eastern Conference Finals with LeBron and the Cavs against the Pistons, or any one of those teams that you want to throw out there in the Eastern Conference back in the mid 2000s? Like, that was brutal. But, I think what is probably indicative of this series is just how lopsided it's been on either side going back and forth. And so I totally expect this next game for the Heat to come out and probably blow the Celtics out. That's just like how this series has been going. I've long contended that this series is going 7, and I don't know if the Heat really have what it takes to win 2 in a row, But I do think that they will come back and win game 6 and take it to 7, and then probably Boston closes it out from there.
Yeah, that Eastern Conference going into the play was so tight. So many teams differentiated by 1, 2, 3 games heading into the playoffs. But injuries have been kind of the quiet theme here. I mean, you got Joel Embiid was banged up with the thumb. Chris Middleton, right, for the Bucks. That was a key piece the Bucks were missing. Kyle Lowry, I mean, he's played the last few games, but he's been a shell of himself as well. I think he went 0 for 6 last night, something like 5 of 23 in the series. Jimmy Butler's got a sore leg. And then you mentioned it, Tyler Hero. He's been out the last 2 games as well. I think that'll be a key factor if he can, not just playing in game 6, but being a factor in that game 6, because certainly injuries have played a huge factor throughout all of the Eastern Conference playoffs, but specifically in this series, Heat really taking one on the chin now. Just can't seem to stay healthy at the right time. All right, Reggie, you did it. You survived the gauntlet once again. We're back here tomorrow, breaking down more Twins, Vikings, NBA and NHL playoffs, and plenty more. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel, rate, like, and review. Join us every day for another episode covering all the biggest topics in Minnesota sports. He's Reggie Wilson. Follow him on Twitter at ReggieWilsonTV and on KARE 11 every night. I'm Luke Inman on Twitter at Luke_Spinman. Tune in tomorrow to Superior Sports Talk, part of Locked On Sports Minnesota. For Reggie, I'm Luke. Until tomorrow, signing out.
Be blessed. Spread love today.
This is Superior Sports Talk with Reggie Wilson and Luke Inman, part of Locked On Sports Minnesota.